Every con has its pros. Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with a brand new movie review, and this movie review is going to be for, so far, the final film, or fourth installments, the final film to be released in this franchise so far, well, hopefully anyways, and as the first spin-off of this franchise that got released 11 years after the last installments, and that film is going to be for 2018's Ocean's 8, released in June 2018, and this time directed by Gary Ross instead of Steven Soderbergh. So, this is the spin-off of the franchise, features an all-new crew, a relative of Danny's, this time Danny's sister taking over operations. But yeah, so anyway, what is the plot of this? Well, following her release from prison, Debbie Ocean, the younger sister of the late Danny Ocean, meets with her former partner in crime, Lou, to convince her to join a heist that she has planned while serving her sentence. Debbie and Lou assemble the rest of their team: Rose Welly, a disgraced fashion designer who is deeply in debt with the IRS; Amita, a jewelry maker and friend of Debbie's who is eager to move out of her mother's house and start her own life; Nightball, a computer hacker; Constance, a street hustler and pickpocket; and Tammy, a profiteer and another friend of Debbie's who has been secretly selling stolen goods out of her family's suburban home. Debbie plans to steal the Twistons, which is a $150 million Cartier necklace, from the Met Gala in 3.5 weeks, and use Met Gala and co-host Daphne Kluger, a famous actress known for her long neck, and an unwitting mule who will wear the necklace into the gala. So yeah. So, how was this film made? Well, after the release of Ocean's 13, Steven Soderbergh stated that there would not be an Ocean's 14, noting that George Clooney wanted to go out strong with the third film in December 2008. He even again said that the fourth film of the franchise was unlikely because of the death of Bernie Mac at the time, who had appeared in the earlier films. However, a female-focused spin-off starring Sandra Bullock was in development as of October 2015. Helena Bonham Carter, Cate Blanchett, Mindy Kaling, Elizabeth Banks, or the last one did not end up turning out to be in the film, were later announced to star in the film, but Banks' presence turned out to be a rumor that did not materialize. And then in August 2016, Bullock, Blanchett, Bonham Carter, and Kaling were confirmed to star, with Annie Hathaway, Brianna Aquafina, and Sarah Paulson closing to deals to fill the cast. During production of the film, Dakota Fanning and Damian Lewis were spotted on set, with Lewis's casting being confirmed in December 2016 and Fanning confirming her casting in March 2017. Briefly, Ocean's 8 premiered at Alice Tilly Hall on June 5, 2018, and was released by Warner Bros. Pictures in the United States on June 8, 2018, 11 years to the day after the release of Ocean's 13, ironically. It grossed $297 million worldwide and received semi-positive reviews from critics who particularly praised the acting ensemble. As for my reaction, now, here's the thing. A female spinoff wouldn't seem like a bad idea, right? Well, keep in mind, this was 2 years after we had a piece of shit called Woke Busters from 2016. Yes. That spinoff. So how did this movie turn out when I saw it? Well, I'll say this. This movie is not terrible, per se, but it is my least favorite or definitely the weakest of the Ocean's movies for sure. First thing I will say, that this movie is way better than Wokebusters 2016, that is for sure. Especially because at least this movie, unlike Wokebusters, which seems to act like it's the original Ghostbusters, no Ghostbusters movies happened before it. This is the only one that exists according to our version. This movie is not a remake, thank God. It is more of a standalone sequel still set in the original franchise. Because this movie still acknowledges the original trilogy as canon to this movie, it even has Elliot Gould make a cameo as Ruben for a brief scene in the beginning of the movie. So I like they actually acknowledge the other films' existence and don't just try to be a remake. The writers address the highest team being off female only once, with kind of a satisfying little wink to the audience during the team selection scene, and Lou does suggest recruiting a man, and Debbie delivers what is probably... Debbie, delivers this line, that him gets noticed, her gets ignored, and for once we want to be ignored. Which is thankfully, this is probably the one time probably the one woke line in the whole film. That's probably the only time the movie goes woke. And other than that, the rest of the movie is not woke, and the writers only address the team's gender briefly. Because I was worried this was going to be a recurring patronizing gimmick. As if they're pulling off a heist despite their gender. Thankfully, it's not the case, and the characters are pretty professional cons, and their gender doesn't really matter here. And on top of the already star-studded main cast, Ocean's 8 is also packed with cameos. A long list of celebs includes some hated ones, like Heidi Klum, Kim Kardashian, playing themselves, attending the Met Gala, while others have character cameos. I'm not sold on including both in the same film. Self-cameos suggest the plot happens in our world, while character cameos seem to contradict that. So, Ocean's 8 plays out in and in between land where Serena Williams exists, but James Corden does it. Well, I'm gonna get to that part in a bit. But perhaps because James Corden doesn't really play a character, he's just himself, basically himself by a different name, working as this insurance investigator rather than a comedian. Yeah. You all know that British talk show guy, James Corden, who's everywhere, all over TV. Yeah, he's in this, which is one of the bad things. I'll get to his character a bit, and why I think it's kind of bad he's in this. I've never been a fan of James Corden, guys. I've always found his comedy very annoying. And he's just made so many garbage movies like the Peter Rabbit films, the Emoji Movie, Cats, the 2019 version, and many more. If there was one good movie he ever did, his only role I've ever liked from James Corden was Into the Woods. And that was pretty much it. In his character, the insurance guy he plays, apparently it's mentioned he's even busted Danny Ocean several times and busted Danny and Debbie's father several times. Well, then why isn't this guy played by an older dude, and why wasn't he in the other movies in the first place, or mentioned? That just makes no sense. It's like they just threw that, it's like they clearly just threw that line in and needed to just have this character be some kind of connection to the franchise. Even though he's only, thankfully he's not in that many scenes, so that is kind of a relief. But back to the review. The main problem with Ocean's 8 is that it doesn't have quite the snap and sparkle that it should. Ice Slick should sing and sizzle at the screen, but Ocean's 8 really manages to do either. Steven Soderbergh, threaded a heartbeat of fizzy joy throughout the original trilogy of the Ocean's films. None of the films starring a host of Hollywood's top leading men would be considered classic cinema, but they were a blast to watch and puzzle out. Ocean's 8, in contrast, though, kind of lacks the personality of those. The film was directed by a workaday efficiency by Gary Ross, who seems concerned with only with getting the plot from point A to point B. It doesn't even help that the screenplay, co-written by Ross and Olivia Mitch, is kind of too busy explaining the heist to actually enjoy it. Like, each aspect of the criminal endeavor is painstakingly laid out, leaving any hints of mystery and magic by the wayside. Even the film's plot twists barely register as surprises. Like, one is mathematically guaranteed. The other revelation arrives less in the key of sleight of hand, like more in the form of sledgehammer. But, and this is a huge but, the cast of Ocean's 8 is staggeringly good. Their on-screen interactions are pretty great. Not as great as the original casts, obviously, but pretty great on chemistry they have. The film becomes better by their very presence. Even particularly evident when it comes to the heists and ringleaders. Like, Bullock largely plays it straight as Debbie, all calm, collected, and in control, but she nonetheless unnerves a little sensitivity to Debbie's swagger. Blanchett, meanwhile, is having the time of her life as Lou, revealing and radiating a rock and roll confidence that can only be partly be attributed to the array of fantastically tailored suits she wears. Those are the only two. Well, the rest of the cast is good, but we don't really know much about them, and they don't really get a lot of developments. We barely connect to the other members of the heist. The only other members that in the team that really get much of a role or get much development are Blanchett and Hathaway's characters, and that's about it. It's like the rest are kind of just filler. And also, this movie does have a villain played by Richard Armitage, who plays Debbie's ex that sent her to prison, but he's really, really forgettable because he doesn't really do much that's considered villainous other than just get Debbie sent to prison for a crime he commits. So I can't really take him seriously as a villain because most of the movie he just does nothing. He's not like the big guys like Terry Benedict or Willie Bank from 11 and 13 were. Some degree Vincent Cassell from 12. The other teaming bears in the original 3 weren't really main characters, but they still served as important and had key roles in the stories for those ones, unlike the females here. But thankfully, none of the females pull off any unfunny Paul Feig jokes in this film. For once, because thankfully this movie isn't directed by him. This movie isn't bad by any means, and for any reviewers who do kind of compare it to Woke Busters, I disagree. Woke Busters is actually hated not because it's all female. Woke Busters was hated because it's unfunny, it was cringy, it basically was a big spit in the face to the original 1984 classic, and a big spit in the face to the original crew. It even acted like the original movie didn't exist and was purely a remake. This film is somewhat of a standalone follow-up or reboot, but it's not entirely a 100% remake here. And plus, this movie is way less woke and still acknowledges the first 3 movies' existence. It wasn't a bad movie, but it is my least favorite of the series. The movies that are different are not inherently bad, and honestly, here's the thing though. Another thing they do differently here is 11 and 13, it's casinos they rob, and 12 they kind of rob mostly this golden egg from Europe. Here, the heist targets is a gala instead of a casino, or millions of dollars, because this time they're after a necklace from a celebrity event. So they did do something different there as well. I really like them to just do casinos again, and I think we've already seen enough of Las Vegas in the other films. We need to kind of go back into their hometown instead. So I really like they did that here. They changed up the concept a bit. Having it be this big event is a better idea than just redoing the same target, same locations, because then it would obviously be a reboot. And if another thing I didn't really like is kind of the ending. because apparently the happy ending's not really happy enough, so we have to have 6 other happy ending montages to punch it up for the other members. And the final shot is because of this movie it states that Danny Ocean has died, but I never bought that the whole movie. Like, he was I could have sworn he was probably alive or just faking his death, because I'm not gonna buy Danny just like dying 10 years after 13 at all. No, like, but it ends with Debbie toasting Danny's picture memorial, and she says, "You would have loved it," and the movie just ends during the credits roll. But here's what I would have done if I were the director of this movie. I would have still had the ending be the same, obviously. Still have her toasting to Danny's picture memorial, but after she says "you would have loved it," you see the camera stays on her face, and we kind of see a blurry figure standing behind her, and then how to make this epic? I would have then have Clooney's voice saying, "I did." And it kind of showed that he was still alive and just faking his death, because it seems obvious the whole time he's just kind of faking his death just to likely just to lay low, kind of live a peaceful life of Tess, or nobody will track him down. That honestly would have made the movie even much better. I would have liked that. It would have been kind of a surprise ending. It would have been neat. And actually connecting both this and the original 3 together. So yeah, that's just me. In the end, Ocean's 8 could have been a funnier, more suspenseful film. Instead, it just kind of spends a bit too much time feeling like a day at the beach, has 0 stakes, and not very memorable lead characters, and a forgettable weak antagonist who doesn't even have the power of an Ocean's villain. So in the end, Ocean's 8 is not terrible, but it is a forgettable spin-off of a great heist trilogy that just worked better as a trilogy, but I will still take it over Wokebusters any day. Anyway, that's it for my review of Ocean's 8. If you're wondering how I'm going to rank Ocean's 8, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you do want to see a different take on the Ocean's franchise or see more sides of the Ocean's family, then I would just stream this one online to save you money and time. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Ocean's 8, I'm going to give Ocean's 8 a 6.5 out of 10. There we go. That covers up the Ocean's franchise. So my next film reviews, I'm going to be doing two movies that, one film I have rewatched, the other first installment I have yet to rewatch before I do my quick thoughts on videos for 3 new releases that came out over the summer that I finally got around to watching. Yeah, so anyway, yeah. So I'll give you a hint at what the next review is going to obviously be for. I'll give you this quote. They're away for us to score. This film's next. I'm going to be reviewing this movie next. So I reviewed South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. I reviewed The Simpsons movie. I reviewed the Bob's Burgers movie. I still have the SpongeBob movie to review, but before I obviously review the SpongeBob movie, I want to do this first. MTV's other biggest show behind Jackass. Until then, that'll be it for this review. Thank y'all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone,